We are live coming with a brand new Stir the Pod podcast show. I'm your host, Trevor, and tonight we're joined by Alex. Alex, how you doing tonight?
Yo, yo, yo.
And we are here, two-man crew, BMFEP, back from the dead. I mean, I don't know about you, Alex. I feel like it's been a long off season for us, but I'm excited. We're back, baby. We're back. A little deep dive, the challenge, season 21 rivals.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one tonight. I feel like the season just ended, but feel like it's also been like several months. And I don't know about you, but I've had the challenge itch. I've had the stir the pod itch, and we have other off season ideas, but I think when we have a 2-man show, a very BMFE vibes, um, it's fun to revisit old seasons. This is maybe the fourth one we've done, third or fourth one,
Mm-hmm.
um, because these seasons that we talk about were before our time as pod,
Yes.
maybe not as fans, but as podcasters. And so it's nice to kind of revisit some of these older seasons and older moments.
God, I almost feel like we should literally go back. I almost think at the end of tonight's episode, we pull out like a wheel and then we got to rewatch a season, but it's like week by week of us like watching it. Like, could you imagine doing that?
So like 12 recaps of some old season.
Yeah, like season by season, like
Oh my
every Wednesday
god.
night, people can tune in with us. 8 o'clock, we'll start it.
Oh god.
But here's the thing, Alex. I mean, like if you get an early season, you're in the clear. I mean, people forget this season that we just had, or the challenge rivals, 10 episodes.
Rivals 1 was only 10 episodes.
10 episodes.
Oh wow.
Early MVP, uh, early MVP candidate.
I like that.
God, Squeakers McGee, what's going on over there?
All right. So let's just get into rivals.
No, we should
So
talk about fresh meat, of course.
let me ask you. Um, we'll get into a lot of details on this pod, but just first thing when you hear somebody bring up the challenge season 21 rivals, what comes to your mind right away? Kind of a reverse one shining moment.
Honestly, this is the season that started it all. I think personally, this is the season that changed the challenge forever. I think everything from this moment on, like how the game's played. I mean, think about this. The opening scene, we've never seen this before. Is everybody just lined up in a straight line and everyone's like, what's this game? The game hasn't been told or whatever. And TJ is just basically like, the only way to win this game is with your worst enemy, your rival. I mean, it's a whole new concept. And I think it opened it up to literally everything you see today, the battle of the X's, kind of the dirty 30s, the free, like just the gameplay itself. This was the birth, I think, personally.
I mean, that's a great point. And it had obviously Rivals 2, Rivals 3. The X's seasons were kind of in a similar vein. And it was at the perfect time because it was after like a handful of really good seasons, and then it just like kicked off an incredible run of
Yeah.
like X's, free agents, Rivals 2, like all of these like A+ seasons came right after this. Um, I think for me personally, this is maybe my favorite season of all time. I always go back and forth between this and X's 2. Those are kind of my top two. And obviously, since we're talking about rivals, I kind of have the rivals itch, so I'll just say it's my favorite. And so it's my favorite season. I love it. I love the cast. The format is simple but very effective. And one of the things too that comes to mind when I think of rivals is I like, we're challenge fans. We have this pod. So sometimes in our lives, we talk to people who don't know what the challenge is and try to like get them, you should watch this show, like go back, watch old seasons. And a lot of times the question you get from people is like, okay, what season should I start with? Right. Cause they're not going to go all the way back to season one, but they want to watch old season. And my answer is always Rivals. And maybe it's like biased because that was the first season that I watched like end to end. Um, but I think Rivals is a good answer for that because it starts an incredible era where you can kind of start at Rivals and then like keep going seasons after. But then it also But then it also has like it shows on the season, it shows like flashbacks, but doesn't really give you that much information. So like you wrap up Rivals and you're like, okay, Wes and Kenny hate each other. Let me go back and watch Fresh Meat 2. Let me go back and watch The Ruins. Or like, CT and Adam, why were they rivals? Let me go back and watch The Duel 2. So I think it's just like a great starting point to kind of jump in and you can kind of go forward and backwards from Rivals.
Well, and I think the storytelling of this season is one of the best ever. Like like I brought up earlier is when they're all in a line and you're like, "Oh," and let's just say you're watching it for the first time, you literally see like you said, "Oh, Kenny and Wes are rivals. Why are they rivals?" And then cut to the flashback. The storytelling in episode 1 was beautiful. Every single person got a moment of why they're rivals with somebody, which you don't really see anymore. Even today, is like you might get a rookie group that you don't see until episode 7 where they get their first confessional. At least in this moment, you get, you literally get every single person just a little backstory.
Yeah.
You know,
And the rivalries are all real. Like
correct.
it's not the social media BS that we get today, and it actually feels like these people hate each other. And like you said, it can't be kind of overstated how much of a shift this was at the time because they had never done anything like this. And like now, it kind of feels like old. Like if you're on a team with somebody you don't like or you have bad blood with or whatever. But back in the day, this was like a brand new thing. So they were like actually shocked. And I think it just like and everybody kind of bought in. The cast, which we'll get to, was incredible, and I just think everything that came out of this season was just really good.
I like the question asked by Mikey the Doctor. Do you think if they had this format today, do you think it would be? I don't know if it would be as successful. I'd probably say no, but I think it would be enjoyable. I just don't know if the rivalries are that deep compared to what we had before. Like, we kind of saw till like the tail end, even Rivals 2. Rivals 2, like, I mean, Bananas and Frank as a rival was a joke. Like, let's be real. And then even like Rivals 3, I mean, there were these rivalries that weren't really rivalries. Like, once you kind of get, like, you could still get rivalries out there. Like Cara and Laurel as rivals today, even though they were partners in the season and Rivals 1, you could have them as Rivals 4. Absolutely. I mean, we've been dying for a Bananas West team, but like that's not going to happen anymore. Like,
Yeah, I mean, you could make a season, but it would be a lot of like manufactured things, and like I,
who do
I
you
feel
think?
like
Who do you think it would be the biggest rivalry of this new era? I don't know if I have one,
I mean I feel like it would still be Bananas and West, even though they're kind of friends now. I feel like that would be
but that's even I'm like talking like this new age, and I don't. I mean, who is it? Like
um,
Amanda and
like
somebody like
Amanda and Tori or something like,
yeah, yeah, that exactly.
or like Josh and Corey. Like it's a lot of rivalries that just wouldn't be nearly as interesting as Kenny and Wes or CT and Adam or Evan and Nehemiah.
Hmm. So, all
So
right.
this was so Rivals was 2011, right?
Mhm.
2011 season 21. So that's what 19 seasons ago and 14 years ago. It's a long
Crazy.
time. Some of the cast, a decent amount of the cast, is still on the last season that we did, season 40, and then a lot of them, a lot of them was the last time we ever saw them. I just have the Wikipedia page up, and we have to mention that the format was allegedly brought to us by none other than Bill Simmons. And Bill Simmons, in one of his articles, had a reader reach out um, in 2010 about having basically saying like the challenge has done every format so far. They need to do a rivals or enemies or something and put them, with their arch enemy. So good for
Credit
Simmons.
Bill.
Yeah, good for Bill for getting that idea. But yeah, so it starts in 2011. We have some sequels and everything. So um, what do you want to do before we get into the cast? Because I still feel like there's a lot of meat on the bone here. One thing that I was thinking of when I was just thinking of rivals and why I like it, especially compared to like current seasons, I can name like just off the bat a dozen awesome moments from this season. Like
Let's just Throw some at us right now. I have a few as well, but
So you have the big TJ reveal. He comes out of his coma, episode 1. Episode 1 also has the big fight that sends Adam home. You have really one of the storylines that we're going to get into that kind of carries on all season. CT versus the world. It's CT versus all those guys. You had like CT yelling in Wes's face all night until the morning.
CT going with Mandy, kind of flirting with her the entire season, and then switches to Laurel, which Mandy then's pissed. And what does she do? She hooks up with Wes.
Okay. Oh, so Mandy was first. I couldn't remember which of those girls
Yeah,
was first for CT.
yeah, Mandy first, and then it led into Laurel kind of sneaking by. I
Yeah,
mean, CT
that's
led
right.
her on the entire season. Let's not forget that. But it's not
Yes.
like Wes to get sloppy seconds in a season. Like that can't be right.
Oh God. So yeah, you have the CT triangle. You have um, the really the first big like long hard final that they did, which obviously became a challenge thing.
You
Um,
you didn't even bring up maybe the best thing about CT this season.
what the Swan?
Well, the Swan was first off, yeah, like there's like 5 guys carrying the Swan
Yeah.
in Mandy's bed, but then he just comes in and just lifts it up with one hand. Uh-oh. Alex, you still there? Um I was going to say the one thing I was going to say, Alex, was CT cussing out Wes all night. Like CT all night just screaming at Wes, cussing him out,
Yeah.
like unbelievable.
That's one that I think that there's the YouTube version of that is uncensored, which is a great watch. Um, that one, and then my mind always goes to the when they switch houses and the whole cast is just on edge. There's the piano, there's the pouring the soda on Kara. Like when you get to like the final 7 teams, like that is like kind of a great atmosphere when they switch houses. Um, you have obviously the final male elimination, which I think was in like the Mount Rushmore of eliminations. Like
We'll get into
you
that.
have so many things that like right now you and I just named a dozen of them. And
What
if you
about I think this was during the fight, the Kara fight. Kenny Maria.
oh, was that when Kenny has a little thing in his hair?
Yes. I mean, so smart. I know your boy Kenny, like that was one of his like iconic moments. I know you, Alex, love Kenny and nobody else, but
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into my guy Kenny tonight.
yeah,
But the fact that like we can just like name so many good fun moments from this season, and like the seasons today, like we struggle to think of our one shining moment award because it's
yes.
hard to like think of more than two maybe. And this one there's a ton, and there's probably like several others that are kind of like buried in the season that we probably are not going to remember on this podcast, but like watching them live were all like fun moments to see.
I just got one more thing real quick on a thing they did this season. I kind of watched like a recap thing just to kind of refresh, and then I watched episode 1. Um, they did a full day at the beach. Like we don't see that. So it was after an elimination. I think it was I wrote it down. It was the Laurel and Cara versus Therese and Camilla, where they're flipping the boards. So it's like you're trying to get the logos all on their side.
Hmm.
Um, After that elimination, they had like kind of like a beach. You know how like we've seen it a few times where they've gone on like a yacht or done something like that for like a day. They literally had like a beach day, and it was a full like 15-20 minutes of a full like they had nothing to do, and then they were doing like what was it called? What am I like truth or dare? They were kissing each other. Like we don't get any of that shit anymore.
That was part of the episode. That wasn't like outtakes or anything.
No, it was a
That's
part of
awesome.
the episode.
That's so good. Like this, and this was back in the glory days, obviously, which means that it was 60-minute episodes, and they were able to just give us. You said what 10 episodes? Like
Yeah.
10 awesome episodes. We're in. We're out. Another thing about this season, I mentioned the format. It's kind of in some ways like the thing I always get hung up with. It's a weird thing, but the thing I always get hung up with on Rivals is the fact that there were 7 guy teams and 7 girl teams, and 3 of them made the final. So like
Yeah.
everybody already started with almost like a 1 and 2 shot of making the final, which seems kind of like participation trophy but at the same time, what I feel like it did is that it made every elimination feel huge because there was only 4 guys and 4 girls eliminations, like period. Nowadays, in the formats we have, it's just like I feel like we get 16 episodes in a row. People get eliminated, and like we can't remember who lost to who because it's just this huge thing. This was 8. There's 8 eliminations. Like it's easy to remember. Each one feels like very big. The numbers go down very quickly. It's a short season. And so like the format, and I threw on episode 1 tonight to get ready for this. I have it on right now. TJ explains the rules when they're at the jungle after he's kind of given them their partners. And that's that. We know the format for the entire season within the first 7 minutes of the show. Nowadays, that just doesn't even come close to happening.
I feel like I think I got something going on right now. Maybe a rival has now entered the
This
chat.
can't be happening.
I mean, what is
This
going on
can't be
here?
happening.
There
I thought I smelled something burning, but it was actually my ears were burning because I heard someone mention Kenny, and I had enough. I had enough. Kenny is my guy. He's always been my guy. He always will be my guy. He's my GOAT. He carried Wes up a mountain in this season. That's the one shining moment. Everybody knows it. He needs the love from me as the biggest Kenny stan that any of us know. And that's why I had to hop in and make sure that got addressed.
I know you want to talk about talk about your guy Kenny, but we're not talking about Casey and Nani and Casey's brother. We're not on those seasons. We're on Rivals.
No, that Kenny's already locked in on White Lotus.
Season 3.
Yes.
Andy, I don't know if you're planning on staying or if you were just hopping in here
pop
for a
in,
sec.
but what do you got?
Let me just ask you real quick. I'll give you the floor. What do you remember the most about your experience with Rivals? Like the first time you watched it, was it live? Did you watch it later on Paramount Plus, or just tell me your experience?
It's a good question. I think I was live. I want to say I might have even had some live watches with Adam Meadows, which is where my challenge fandom stemmed from, which is crazy because I don't even think he watches the show anymore. But I do remember this was probably the best pilot reveal ever of like the classic, all the cast is out there in that big arena and your one partner is the person that you can't stand. That was awesome.
Is the delay that bad?
What? I
literally said that about 18 minutes ago. That was the first thing I said. It literally is the best way they've ever opened a season. There's no bullshit. And then I also said they literally talk about every single couple. So there's nobody you don't know. The storyline, the storytelling is amazing.
Yeah, that was going to be the other thing that I said is they went through couple by couple and talked about the rivalries, if you will. But it was awesome because, like, to your point, did we have any newbies, any rooks?
But we got the storyline. John A. and Jasmine, they showed the real world highlight, and they also showed Leroy. And what
Adam.
Adam?
Adam
Yeah.
R?
Yes.
God, and then Mike. So let me ask you this. Was Leroy and Mike kind of the first instance did that set the stage for Jordan and Anissa being ride or dies? Where it's like, they're not rivals. They're not, like, what are we talking about here?
I mean, come on.
Mike and Leroy walked so Anissa and Jordan could run and then twist their ankle.
I mean, you really live on ABST time. Like it is
Well,
unbelievable.
did you talk about that too? Oh, that's awesome.
Fake rivals. Of course we did.
God. Well, you know, you
God.
guys are. Did you both do rewatches?
Sort of. Quick little fast forward through some EPs. Not really watching like a full season in a day, but for the
When
most
have you
part,
ever done that though?
we'll get into that later.
I think this was a great season.
God. All right. Well, it looks like after there was some Kenny and West debate, it looks like we got to call in another mercenary into the chat. Mr. Where is he? There he is. Adam Meadows.
Oh, come on.
What's up, boys?
I mean, what's going on, Meadows? Why
Well,
the red face?
I heard that we were talking about, smelling smoke, and then I heard we were talking about my boy Kenny, and I just had to jump in and defend his name.
Watch it.
Adam, anything you want to say about this season? Rivals? Like, do you remember where you were when you first watched this?
Well, I think it was like 2011. So what? That was probably like 19 seasons ago, maybe 13, 14 years ago. I don't know. I think the craziest thing to me, and I don't know if this has been mentioned yet, but it's like you had 7 guy teams, 7 girl teams, and then 3 of them made the final. So it's like, it's a little bit participation trophy is what is kind of my main takeaway.
Come
on. Honestly, Adam, I love that.
It's very insightful.
So original. Yeah, I love it. The one thing I want to bring up to you, Adam, is I think this is a season, or we might as well just bring it up now. We were going to wait. The famous scene of Kenny carrying Wes up the mountain. Now, that scene, obviously iconic, don't get me wrong. But let's not forget, Wes literally carried Kenny the entire season.
Figuratively. Kenny carried Wes literally up a mountain.
And do you think
the best part about that was it was all because Wes thought he was going to be smart and like crush up the rock and stuff it into his socks. Like that's just Wes doing Wes things, i.e., like trying to be smart about something that doesn't require like being smart about like different season when like Mandy jumped on his back when he was like trying to hold onto the rope and they just fell immediately. That's
exactly what I was going to say. Wes definitely suffers from trying to outsmart everybody when it's not necessary at all. I know you guys aren't big on the spinoffs, but in Challenge USA Season 2, they basically had a daily challenge where before it even started, it was just like a prerequisite that everybody had to drink like a gross smoothie. And if you didn't do it, you got like a 1-point penalty. And Wes was like adamant. He's like, I'm not going to do it. Like, I don't think it's going to matter. Like, I'm not going to do it. Like, it doesn't matter. And then he lost by 1 point, got sent into elimination, and went home. And like everyone else knocked out the smoothie in like 20 seconds. Like it was bad, but it wasn't like the worst thing ever. And so, I mean, it's just spot on. But you know what? That's why we love him. Well, we'll get into that.
Did the rivalry of Kenny and Wes actually prompt this season? Because that was a big rivalry. And this was kind of Apex Mountain for that rivalry. But I think it was almost like Dirty 30 was prompted by Bananas. Like, I think Rivals was prompted by those two because of the other like teams on this season. Who else had like a big rivalry between like 2 of the perennial finals contenders?
Well, I mean, CT almost killed his partner. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I think Cara and Laurel, obviously they were newer, but I think that team.
Yeah.
But at least
And
they've kind of like mended the fences at this point, right? Like they're on good terms.
God. Let me go
They're in
this
their
route with you,
40s.
Andy. Let me go this route with you, Andy. Is Wes and Kenny the biggest rivalry in challenge history? Like true hatred. True hatred.
I mean, the way that you're kind of like tongue in cheek smirking makes me think that you've got something else hidden up your sleeve. But I'm gonna
I
go
don't.
yes. I think Kenny hates him.
I think the only argument you can make is obviously Bananas and Wes, but like I think that's very playful now. It's not even like I think today, like I might agree with you, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. I'm not like that is a true like they hate each other and still do to this day.
And Kenny just looks fantastic. Wes looks terrible.
I do think, to your point, Trev, I think Wes and Kenny were kind of the poster boys of like the season being rivals. But I think we cannot overstate just how much of a shock it was at the time to see CT back on the challenge when we all thought that he was going to be getting the lifetime ban for punching a guy in the face. And then his partner is the guy who we punched in the face. And every other team had at least one of the two partners who couldn't stand CT. Like it really was CT versus the world, and his partner was the guy who 5 seasons before this said, "I want to smash his face and eat it." Like that just like can't be overstated. Just how much of an insane thing that was to have at episode 1.
In the
Insane.
membrane.
Insane. So are you boys sticking around or what?
Yeah,
Should we just
I feel
continue
like-
the show? Or are you guys?
I mean, me and Andy are kind of carrying this, so maybe me and Andy
Yes.
kind of bounce to our own thing. You guys carry on. Very
We're
Jason
kind of
Bateman-esque.
carrying him up the mountain.
If you guys want it, you guys can have it here.
Oh, come on. Oh, God. All right. And that was tonight's Stir the Pod.
Yeah.
Thank you
So
guys.
my
Love
MVP is
you guys.
Andy. LVP is Trevor and Alex tied. All right.
Yeah.
I was just popping in.
We'll let you guys go. Thank you guys for hopping in for a sec.
MVP Kenny, by the
Um,
way. That's my pick. LVP
M-
West.
MVP West, LVP Kenny, official.
just return the volley.
Yeah.
Game
All right.
starts
Thank
now.
you guys. Hey, Andy, do you smell that?
I gotta go put out this fire. I need to go find it first. All right.
Yeah.
GG's.
All righty. Adios. All right. Time to get the train back on the
Please.
tracks. I know we kind of went all over the place there. So where were we, Alex? We were kind of talking about just kind of random shit for now. We want to talk about, well, let me ask you
Okay.
this. Do we think this season had the best dailies and eliminations? Like the games. Like I think the games are very unique. Like we'll start off with the dailies, excuse me. Jumping into people's, like, you know, it's very smirky. The one where they're in the crane, where they're like
Yeah.
sitting on each other's lap and they're like doing, like, I think Rivals has like some of the best like dailies when it's like you and your partner are working together. It's just smirk city.
They did a really good job of leaning into you and your partner hate each other, and you're gonna have to like be in these
Mhm.
weird. There was a lot of teamwork stuff, a lot of like awkward, sit on the lap, hope you don't feel something down there. Like a lot of these like weird situations that they put them in, I feel like they did a really good job with. And I mean, to be honest, it does have the advantage compared to today of only having 20 seasons before it, as opposed to 40. Like they can only think of, like, the challenges today aren't that good, but like they've had 40 seasons, and the eliminations, like I said, there's only 8 of them, right? And they were, I feel like every single guy's one was good. Every single girl's one was pretty good. Like they definitely, and they should be, right? If you only have 8 in a season. I just think there's not many weaknesses on this season. I know we talked about the cast, and we only had 4 rookies. Well, I guess 5 with the Mike coming on. But that was the smartest way to do it. right? You have 7 teams on each side. Just pick one. You don't need 2 rookie teams like on each gender. And then obviously like Jasmine, Janae, and Leroy all did like several challenges. So like they kind of hit with those guys. And if you look at the whole cast, if you just throw out like Anissa and Robin and like Tyree and Davis because they were the first teams out, like every single other person is either a Hall of Famer or a really good like second tier challenger, maybe third tier. Really everybody besides like Mike and what's her name? What Sarah's partner, the girl who looks like the guy from like Mike. So I think like the cast was amazing. The eliminations, the dailies, the drama, the hookups. Like I really don't know what the weak spot is. What's Butch's?
Well, and I also think, just to tie it all together, it's such a simple thing this season. Like the dailies, the eliminations, the voting process, you're last place, you're automatically in. And then the rest of the house, they vote you. Like it's as simple as day, and there's no bullshit twist that completely, like a twist here and there, completely fine. But when we don't even know, when they're making up the rules on the fly, that's where I have an issue. Like Bananas taking the money and run at the end. At least we knew that going into the final and stuff like that, which I'm fine with. But it's not like these seasons nowadays are just throwing shit all over the place. And it's like, we don't even know what we're doing. Oh, I guess we're going to Conquest now. Like, it just makes no point. In no sense.
Yeah.
So do we want to go a little team by team, or what do we want to do?
Let's do that. Maybe start with like, I guess the girls was first, right? So we can kind of go girl, guy, work our way to the top. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So the first, and again, some of them we don't have to spend as much time on. But the first team that went out, I'm watching it right now, episode 1, Anissa and Robin. I mean, they were pretty ho-hum. I mean, obviously Anissa's done a million seasons since then. Robin, I hope Robin's getting better. We've seen some mug shots of her kind of current day. I think she is getting better. But at the time, this was like one of the weaker teams, right?
Well, I think at the time, like Anissa was still known, like she was bad. Like, I mean, think about this. Anissa's done probably like 30 seasons since this season. So like she was known as like an elimination queen.
Yeah, I mean, she still had the veteran status, which she obviously used on episode 1 to try to not get voted in. But I mean, if we were ranking these teams before the season, I feel like they might be last.
I mean, yeah, today we would absolutely go last, but I don't know. It's just it's a bad team. And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. They went home episode 1 against who? It was Paula and Evelyn, right?
Paula and Evelyn, yeah. So that's a big sliding doors moment because they were obviously the top dog all season, and so they could have gone home episode 1.
Exactly. Was that the one where they were like holding each other?
Yes, they were like balancing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
guys.
Yeah, let's do the guys.
We got to start off with Adam, Leroy's partner, first.
Oh, because he went home?
Yeah, I mean, he was the first one gone.
So I remember my only thought about Adam isn't really about Adam. But I remember watching this when I was 14, 15. And obviously, this is my first season that I watched live. And so I just assumed that this was like a season thing. Like I assumed every season was going to start episode 1 with somebody getting sent home for a fight. And we kind of, I'm trying to think, we got that a decent amount in the seasons after this. But like, I was just convinced that like that was how the challenge went for whatever reason. And then nowadays, you know, we make it our sort of the prop sometimes. But nowadays, like the security's there, it never happens.
Yeah. So here's the thing, Alex. I think nowadays, like everybody's just soft. Like I just feel like we don't have that person throwing a punch anymore. I mean, when was the last time someone's actually been kicked off the show for a punch thrown or being too drunk and doing something crazy? Like you don't really see that anymore. Everybody's kind of aligned and they're just not like
Yeah.
I really don't want to say they're in it to win it because there are definitely contestants that are not for that. But like, I just feel like there's just a lot of people. There's not that drama we need like we've had.
No, and we talked about the first episode. This was such a great way to start it, to like get drama off the bat, and have somebody go home. And then you add that on the fact that like nobody really knew who Mike was, and he ends up being like a really funny, goofy character to have on as a rookie. So like it all kind of paid off.
And I don't want to jump too far ahead, but Mike was literally argument MVP of the season.
Oh, stop.
He was awesome.
He was kind of smirky.
He was Smirk City. Like he was incredible. So, all right. So Adam obviously went home first because of DQ. But then we had I'm looking at this list and I don't even know who the fuck this guy is. Davis and Tyree. I mean, that has to be, looking at the teams, that has to be the first team we would have voted out. Like, that team is so bad.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Who the fuck is Davis?
he
did 3 seasons?
I think he was the other guy that got punched by CT.
God.
I'm pretty sure CT also punched the shit out of him too. But yeah, I mean, the only thing, remember when they did basically the Oklahoma drill for their elimination, and Kenny was talking about how Tyree claimed to be a football player in Nebraska, and then they just like ran him out of the circle.
Smirk.
All right, let's move. Let's skip them and go to the next girls team, which was Teresa and Camilla. 2 heavy hitters went home early. What do we think about them?
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of talked about this earlier. I mean, you had them going against Cara and Laurel, and this was the elimination where you're flipping I guess Alex disappearing for a quick sec. But that was the elimination where essentially you're flipping the boards and one side's facing the other side or whatever. And it's the best way to describe this. There is a Mario Party mini game out there. I'm just trying to think of which one it's called. I think it's like the hammer one when you're hammering like the colors or whatever. So you're trying to get more colors on your side versus their side. Very smirky game. But looking at this team now, I mean, like Camilla and Teresa, that on paper has to be a top 3 team. Like that team, that's a damn good team. Like Teresa was a beast back then, still is today. I think her last season, when was it? Like 4 seasons ago, was kind of weak. Kind of stirred up a lot of drama. Didn't really do much of a performance. But, I like having Teresa. I think she'll always be known for the free agents basketball game versus CT, which you guys should go rewatch if you haven't recently. And then Camilla is Camilla. I mean, she is a fucking psycho. Like, she is incredible TV content. She's been canceled, but like incredible content. So that team, I don't know. I just don't know how they went home. Literally, second female team eliminated. Insane to me. Looking at the chat while we wait for Alex to rejoin, Mike and Paula was smirk. Yeah, I mean, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, Mikey the Doctor. That season, Mike was on Real World. What was it, Vegas? What was he on? Which Real World was he on? Yes, he was on Real World Vegas. And everybody on that season was hooking up with people left and right. And he was the only person that didn't hook up or have sex with anybody. But for whatever reason, nothing happened. And now Paula comes along during the challenge, and they decide to hook up. I mean, just good for him, and kind of a smirky thing for the season. So I guess I gotta just keep. Do I just keep going without Alex? I mean, this is nuts. Next team eliminated for the guys was Brandon and Ty, which, I mean, this is like as skippable as we can go. I mean, Brandon, to me, what season is he on now? or what was the spinoff he was just on? Like, I actually liked Brandon. He's just too nice of a guy to play this game. There are certain people, like, you just have to have like a backbone and like completely just fuck people over. And I just feel like he's too loyal. So tied, not really much to say with him. He stinks. Next team I want to talk about is Caitlin and Sarah. Now, this team, I think this was mostly, I was very interested with this team because of the elimination that they went home on. You had Jasmine and Jonna versus them in the puzzle. And I have to laugh that the puzzle queen herself, Sarah Rice, loses after I think there's a scene in this season where essentially like Jasmine or Sarah's just talking and she's like, no, I'm the best. I can beat John A. No problem. Like, doesn't matter what it is. And then John A is like sitting at the kitchen table, just hearing this entire thing. And look who's back from the dead. I mean, just leaving me solo. There he is. Welcome back, Alex. Maybe I'll just stop where I was because I jumped a little in front, but you want me to go back or where do you want me to go?
Can you hear me? Who
Yeah,
are we on now?
Well, we were on Camilla and Teresa. I already talked about that. And then I just talked about Brandon and Ty. And I was getting on to Caitlin and Sarah. But let's go back to Camilla and Teresa. I said that team to me would be, like, if we were to do power rankings today, probably a top 3 team.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost like when you go back and like that season when like the Thunder had Durant, Westbrook, and Harden all together. Or like if anybody's seen the movie That Awkward Moment with Miles Teller, Zac Efron, Michael B. Jordan, and 3 young stars, it should have worked, and for some reason it didn't. That's kind of Camilla and Teresa. Obviously Camilla would go on to win the very next season. Teresa would become like a pretty solid competitor, and they just went home early for whatever reason. Like they should have made it at least an episode further. But I mean, Camilla was still young. She wasn't like Apex Mountain Camilla or anything. But was this one of the more attractive partnerships we've had?
Oh, for sure. Definitely
It
a top
has to
5
be.
executive. I mean, it's got to be the only one I can think of right now like that is this season with Dario and Ashley. That's got to be number 1 for partners. But it's up there.
That's a good point. I think they're definitely up there. I really can't think of many off the top of my head right now, to be honest. I'm not upset that I missed Brandon and Ty.
No, I said Brandon. I think the best way to describe Brandon is like he's a likable guy, but he doesn't have that fight. Like you need to pull a dagger every so often, and I just feel like he just does not have that in him.
Yeah, I agree.
No.
And I think when Brandon and Ty got eliminated, something that I weirdly remember and kind of bugged me, the numbers were small, right? Because when they got eliminated, there was only 6 guy teams left, and it was basically the mob was going to pick either Brandon and Ty or Leroy and Mike. And I think Wes and Kenny were like afraid of a puzzle and Mike. And like what Brandon and Ty should have done is like tried to side with Leroy and Mike to try to like garner up, the rookies and the Caitlins and the misfits. And instead they just like voted each other, which is just like not a smart like political thing to do. And I'm not sad that they went home early by any means.
No, it was just they're just dead to us. Like
yeah.
they're
Let's do the next girls team pretty quickly because I feel like after them is when we kind of get to like the second half of the season and things start really heating up.
Yeah, so I brought up the one thing that with this team, Sarah and Caitlin, was how cocky Sarah was before she went home. Like she was going against John A and Jasmine. And I was telling the story of her literally sitting at the kitchen table or whatever, saying like, oh, I could beat John A, no problem. Not too worried about her. And John A is like, wait, you're talking about me? Like literally right in front of her talking shit. sure enough, it turns out to be a fucking puzzle, which is like, oh, Sarah's like, I think she even says when I come back, like during the
Yeah.
confessional or something like
She was like jumping and
And-
cheering.
correct. So that happens, and then she goes home. Maybe one of the bigger upsets in challenge at that time, definitely one of the biggest upsets in challenge against an all rookie team. too.
Yeah, it was an upset. It was a rookie team pulling off the upset. It was one of the great like karma moments, like celebrating too early type things. And it wasn't one of the 10 best things this season. Like that's just a nod for how good
Yeah.
this season is that like this was like when we watched this live, like this was a good episode. Like seeing, the way it all played out. I think TJ with the elimination, remember one partner was like buried in hay. And so TJ comes to the house and like takes him. And it's kind of like a weird thing that we don't usually see much. And so it was an entertaining episode. And then it was just Sarah would go on to win over bananas and then win with bananas. But like at the time, this is kind of who Sarah was. She was always the person that got halfway and never won. But
Absolutely.
yeah, that was another great moment.
Yeah. Next team, Evan and Nehemiah. Which this team to me is one of the biggest what ifs. And what I'm going to say, I think Evan just looked terrible this season. Like out of shape, did not care. I think there were rumors of him going to grad school and just didn't take it seriously. This team on paper, like if Evan shows up, I like this team a lot.
I do too. I feel like we can't talk about them in terms of losing their elimination without talking about the big D-Day plan,
Yeah.
which is like one of the biggest storylines of the whole season, which was basically, from episode 1, they had this big alliance against CT, and obviously Johnny, Evan, and Kenny are all 3 best friends, and they're all on 3 teams, so like they have a lot of numbers, and they were just so insanely afraid of CT. Like we cannot let this guy make a final, and they figured their best option was to um, have somebody else win so that CT was vulnerable and not like safe from elimination, and then Evan and Nehemiah would get last place on purpose, and then they would have the numbers to vote in CT and Adam, basically thinking that of their 3 teams in their alliance, that Evan and Nehemiah had the best shot. Maybe because they matched up like size wise with CT because Evan was pregnant, like CT said. I don't know, but that was kind of their plan. I think the episode before when Brandon and Ty went home, I think they were gonna do it, and then Wes and Kenny got last place, so it kind of ruined their plan. Um, but this episode they were able to pull it off. They send CT and Adam in, and that legendary shot of of Evan just hanging on the thing in the elimination, like unable to make the pull move at all. Like that's classic.
I mean, just a team that coulda, shoulda, woulda.
And it was the second time Evan sent himself in against CT. He did it on the duel,
Yeah.
and he just didn't learn his lesson. What do you think? What do you think about their kind of D-Day plan?
I think
Was that the best?
throwing yourself into an elimination is insane.
Yeah.
Unless you have, like, if it's CT, like, and it's whatever the elimination is, and you feel confident enough, like, I mean, CT doesn't have that many weaknesses, but like, I don't know. I think it's fucking
The
stupid.
thing, so
Great
yeah,
storyline.
great storyline. I agree it's stupid. From Johnny and Wes and Kenny's perspective, like they're okay with it, right? Because they get it's not them doing it. But
Yeah.
I don't know. The thing that I never quite understood with the whole plan was like, I know they hate CT. They want him gone. CT had never won a final at this point. I don't even know if he had made one, but like, it's not like he had this like Jordan-esque record of like, if I get to a final, I'm winning. And neither did Adam. It's not like Adam was incredible or anything. And so I just like never really understood why they were so adamant about like,
And I know there's only 3 spots in the final, so, like, ideally, it would have been the 3 of them. I just don't know why they didn't, like, try to send in CT against, like, Leroy or something. Like, not going that far to, like, send yourself in. Worst case, you go against CT, a guy who's never won in the finals.
Yeah. I don't know. So moving on, Jasmine and John A.
Okay.
Rookie
Yeah.
team. Obviously we've already talked about them being kind of an upset of them over Sarah. I mean, we've definitely seen more seasons from John A and Jasmine, but like for our first little taste, like I'm fine with both of them. There's nothing I hate. I think Jasmine's crazy, which I fucking love for television. She's like a little firecracker. I love it.
This was a really good example back in the day of just, like, rookies working out and, like, having, like, notable seasons. And we've talked about the whole cast and the rookies and everything, but, like, nowadays, you'd have 8 rookies on a season, and you maybe will remember, like, one of them. And, like, Jasmine and Janae were just, like, the perfect, like, they made their mark. They were entertaining. They got along with the cast. They fought with each other and fought with other people. They won an elimination. They competed. They made it further than, like, any, like, if we were to doing the power rankings, I'm sure they would have been last or second to last for us. Like, um, and you just, like, you get this every now and then from the challenge, like rookies who make it farther than you think they would. And obviously they made their mark to the point where they both got several calls back after this. So, like, good for them. This is just kind of another, like, piece of the rivals puzzle, is that we have this, like, fun, crazy rookie girl team to talk about.
Yep. The next team, I mean, maybe top 3 elimination of all time. CT and Adam, which we talked about earlier. Can't believe CT came back from the show. We thought he was banned, let alone the person that punched him in the face being back. But finishing in 4th place, which it's crazy. I feel like we haven't even really spent that much time talking about teams, but we're already on the 4th place for the guys, which just shows how crazy. Just how many teams? 7 teams, 8 teams, whatever it was. Like, just wild. But CT and Adam, T-Bone versus Johnny Bananas and Tyler. I mean, one of the most entertaining. You have not seen that elimination, go watch it right now. Just awesome. Incredible.
It was, and even the daily and the drama leading up to it was awesome, because you had 4, because at this point there's only 3 girls teams, right? So they were all, like, had their tickets for the final, and then you had um Bananas and Tyler, Wes and Kenny, and Mike and Leroy, and CT and Adam. And so, like, obviously the mob, their ideal situation was Leroy and Mike against CT and Adam. But then Leroy, do you remember the daily when it's the helicopter and Leroy just gets on that rope and just fucking climbs it in, like, I think 8 seconds, and it's just like daily over, they win, and it just throws a huge wrench in their plans, especially with CT getting last place. Because if West would have gotten last place, then you just vote CT in or whatever. But it literally finally came down to the mob voting against each other, which is something that it's something that is always fun when you do get that, where, like, you have an alliance that kind of has the numbers in a challenge season, and then ultimately they get to a point where they have to vote against each other and pick each other off. That's what this was. um TJ also did the classic, like, you guys have to do this right now. And so Wes and Bananas and Kenny, they were all, like, lobbying for, their friends who had friends on both sides. And then I can't find the exact voting. Um but Bananas and Tyler get voted in, and then, like you said, the elimination is just a Mount Rushmore. It's incredible. Watching that
Absolutely.
one. I think that was the moment I fell in love with the challenge.
I mean, it was just it's
I had been
insane.
watching the season, my first season, and I enjoyed everything about it. And then once it got to that final elimination, you could just feel it. You could feel the tension. It's the fucking dugout tunnel and the balls and the hitting and all of that, like, just incredible.
It's the challenge. It's why we love it, Moving on, we got our final teams
Yeah.
now. So we got 3 guys, 3 girl teams. First one, third place, didn't finish the final. Correct me if I'm wrong. This was the season where there was a bunch of food poisoning during the final.
It was like right before the final, I think. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Tyler was really sick.
Jen. Yeah. So Jen and Mandy. What do we want to talk? I mean, Jen. I don't know how I feel about Jen throughout the years. Like, I just feel like she's all right. Nothing too crazy. Mandy, obviously, we talked about earlier with her hooking up with CT, hooking up with Wes. Just like an interesting team. I don't think I would have ranked this group in the top 3, that 4, 5, 6 range, but overall, like, an enjoyable team.
Yeah, I agree. They definitely. I mean, Jen was a full-fledged vet at this point. I think Mandy had done 2 seasons. But they were just like the classic. They were the only girls team in the final that never went into elimination, and they just like had the numbers the entire time. They were aligned with the right people, because Jen was a vet and had the right people on her side. And so yeah, nothing special about this team, but um, like it makes sense to me that they got third or maybe would have gotten fourth, because they have numbers, and once they get to the final, like, you're not going to expect Mandy to cross the finish line. But uh, yeah, I don't really know. Like, I don't really know what else to say about Jen and Mandy.
Yeah. Just like a middle of the road team that delivered better than expectations. So now we go third place for the guys. We got Leroy and Mike, which one of another rookie team. Now, there might be a little asterisk by it because they weren't really rivals, but we'll give it to them. So, I mean, Mike, one of the most enjoyable people this season, crowd favorite. So, anything else about Leroy and Mike?
I mean, this is just a fun team because they were weirdly friends, right? They weren't rivals. But Mike was like, it would have been easy to get mad at the fact that they weren't rivals if Mike came in and he was just like this jacked, like, athletic, good at everything guy, and then you're like, oh, this isn't fair. And then it's fucking Mike, and you're like, all right, this kind of makes sense. But if you look at them as like the contrast between the two guys, Mike is probably one of the most universally liked one and dones ever. Like, people would have loved to seen him just do one more season. And then Leroy, this is the start of Leroy. This is the start of his 13, 14 seasons in a row. Obviously never wins one. But it's almost like, who was it? Like Dan Marino when he made the Super Bowl in his second season. Like, that's kind of what Leroy did. Like, he made the final right away. Went on to have a lot of awesome moments, but this was just like another storyline from this season, was that it was like the first season of maybe not a challenge legend, but like a really good challenger in Leroy.
Yeah. No, Leroy for sure. I mean, let me ask you this with Leroy. Out of all the people that have not won a challenge, is he number 1 that you want to win?
That I want to win, yes.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to be one of, if not the most liked challenger of all time, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know who hates
Yeah,
Leroy.
and you got that vibe from this season from Rivals, that like people liked him, fans liked him. But a lot of times in the challenge universe, that'll kind of fade off eventually. On season 3 or 4, they might have to make a choice that, rubs people the wrong way. Leroy's maintained this for like 14 years now. Like, people have always liked him. And he's just one of like the most liked guys we've ever seen.
Absolutely. Moving on, second place girls, we have Cara and Laurel, which is one of the like biggest rivals of all time. Like, I mean, they still hate each other today. I mean, the ups and downs, the relationship, the timeline on these guys is just insane. Alex, what
One
do you
of the
got for them?
most fascinating just partnerships at the time and looking back at it, like these two could have been. I'm trying to think of when the other seasons happened, but like on Rivals 2, if like they were both on Rivals 2, I don't think they could have been partners because they were friends at the time. But like Rivals 3, they probably could have been partners. Like they're always up and down, and I just think this is like really a cool thing looking back to see that they were actually partners on a Rivals season, because we'll probably never
Mhm.
get it again. And if you look at all of the rivalries on this season, it's either like they made up, right? They make up during the course of the season and they're kind of friends going forward, or they don't make up and they start as rivals and end as rivals. Kara and Laurel, though, is like the one where they started the season as rivals. By the end of the season, they're friends. And then in future seasons, they're rivals again, they're friends again. Like it is always back and forth. And so it is it's just fun that we did get them as like official partners on a season here.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I just think also like I would love Rivals 4 with these guys.
That's I mean, out of guys or girls, if they say Rivals 4 is tomorrow, is this the pairing we want the most?
I think it's the most. Here's the thing. I don't know if it's what I want the most. I think it's also one of the biggest, most realistic. I mean, if we did guy girl pairings, I think number one would be Bananas and Cara.
Ooh, I would go Bananas and Sarah.
Oh well, I am realistic. But yes, absolutely, I agree with that.
Yeah, Kara and Laurel.
Could you imagine doing Rivals for Bananas and Sarah, and you have Amanda, or you have Ashley and Hunter?
Oh God.
Are you gonna dance? Are you
All right,
gonna
who's
dance?
next?
We got your boy Kenny and Wes. So second place, Kenny and Wes. I think maybe the one shining moment scene of the season obviously was Kenny carrying Wes up the mountain. We brought it up earlier. I feel like I'm a broken record saying we brought it up earlier because we were all over the place. But Wes did carry Kenny a lot this season. Kenny got DQ'd 3 out of the first 5 dailies.
He lost his mojo.
He lost his mojo. He was out of it. And Wes carried him until Kenny literally carried Wes.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, here's the thing. There are moments in challenge history. I think the Bananas backpack is the number one most rewatchable scene. I think it's a little overrated, but like in the challenge community, that's got to be number one. Kenny carrying Wes up the mountain is got to be top 5. Mount Rushmore, top 4.
Yeah. I mean, I think Kenny and Wes on Rivals played out in I think like the optimal way. Being like it does start with Wes can basically blame Kenny for going in every time and like kind of being being up for elimination a lot. But like you had these moments early on where Wes is trying to like talk Kenny up because they are partners, and he's trying to talk Kenny up and be like, don't worry about it. That's like a weird challenge. We got the next one. And then by the end of the season, in the finale, the roles reverse. Wes is the one falling apart, and so they both can like blame each other for certain things. And then I just will always remember when they're in the final, and like Kenny's Kenny's throwing like the stopwatch down because they just like blew their lead in the final to get second place, and like these guys, they shouldn't be friends, and it does. They're kind of like they were being like good teammates, but they were never going to be friends. And like you look at like Bananas and Tyler, like I think those guys had it in them to be friends, whether they won the season or not. Kenny and Wes were never going to be like true friends. And so I think it's just like poetic that, they come up just short. They both can kind of point to each other and be like, you screwed this up, you screwed that up. And then they end it and they still fucking hate each other. I just love that.
And they didn't win, which
Yeah.
is the best
Yeah.
part.
And so, do you think if we're doing this in 2011, who do you think is our power rankings preseason guy team?
I mean, that has to
Wes
be
and
number
Kenny,
one.
right?
That
Yeah.
has to be number one. I don't even know if I would put Bananas too. Bananas and Tyler on paper, like Tyler's not like an amazing. I mean, he's a smart competitor. I wouldn't say he's like physical or anything like that. They're just a good, well-rounded
Yeah,
team.
I think it's Wes and Kenny would have been one. And
Honestly, back in 2011, I might go Evan and Nehemiah.
I was gonna say either Bananas and Tyler or
Oh,
CT and Adam.
CT and Adam
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, 2011 CT was scary, man.
But going back to Kenny and Wes, like it is also fun that these guys were actually partners for a season. They had one of the most real
Yeah.
rivalries. Every single season they were on, they were against each other, and now we actually had to kind of see them try to work together, and it had mixed results. Like they did make the final, but they were both like hated each other. You could tell deep down.
Absolutely. Then we go to first place for the females, which was Evelyn and Paula. Which this team, the storytelling, I know I've said it again, the storytelling on this team was beautiful. Evelyn, I remember when she got selected to be Paula's partner, she's like, I got to do the impossible. I got to carry Paula and make her win a final. Like, do the impossible and do it. And sure enough, they were the best team all year.
They were, and it was a fun storyline because they both had friends on all of the other teams. They were both like protected pretty well. They had to defend their spot though, like we talked about episode 1, to like stick in the house. And then Evelyn had won 2 challenges before this, I think, and Paula had just never been able to win. They had the rivalry from the island where Bananas and them kind of picked Evelyn over Paula at the last second. And yeah, it was a fun thing because Evelyn, you could say like Evelyn had to drag Paula to her first, gold medal. But Paula was also really good. Like she had always been like a really solid challenger. Obviously, she wins Rivals too as well, with another good partner. But like, I feel like this was just a fun kind of like team for them to be together and actually like. And I feel like this was another one where they went into the season with like a real, maybe not hatred, but real rivalry, and they ended it and they were like actually almost friends basically.
Yeah, which I
Yeah.
enjoyed. I like how there's certain teams that come together. I mean, it's what it's about. I mean, you're all competitive. You can hate each other, but like, I think Bananas said it, and we'll go into him right now, him and Tyler. I mean, they buried the hatchet. Same thing with him and Sarah in Rivals 3. Like, he even said on numerous podcasts, him and Sarah buried that beef like episode 2. Like, it was all for show.
Yeah.
Like, and like, they know how to put the game ahead of, everything. So, going into Bananas and Tyler, like, yes, they had a rivalry, but overall, like, I don't want to say they were boys, but it felt like towards the end, like they were fine.
Yeah.
Compare, and maybe that's also compared to some of these other teams. Like when you're looking at Wes and Kenny, I mean, literally, Bananas and Tyler wins, and then you look at Kenny and Wes finishing, and Kenny's just screaming at Wes the entire time. You fucking moron and stuff like that.
Yeah, like the level of magnitude of each of these rivalries that we're going through is obviously a little different. I feel like Johnny and Tyler, there was a real rivalry. Like I don't think it was made up stuff, but if you look at it, like they were real world roommates, and I think they were friends, like decent friends on Key West, and then really all it was the duel, and Tyler picked Johnny. And if you go back and watch that episode, I don't think it was like malicious or anything. They were both rookies. They both didn't really know how to play the game. And Tyler was just like, we were at the end of the line. I picked you. And then, Bananas being smart about it kind of plays it up a little bit. So I think there was like somewhat of a rivalry. At least enough to not like be totally fake, but like at the end of the day, they both had it in them to like just be friends and like be cool with each other. At this point, they had probably known each other for like 6 years, and so they like had like enough of a history to be like to come together and win the final elimination and then win the final. So I think this is a really, and then Tyler goes back to back. He won Cutthroat.
Cutthroat,
So
yeah.
I think Johnny and Tyler's a really fun team, an underrated team looking back.
Yeah. But I still think, like, looking at this team on paper, I don't know if I would have had them top 3.
You love the Evan Nehemiah pairing.
I do. I mean, Evan was just so out of shape. But, like, I don't
So
know.
would you have put Evan and Nehemiah in the top 3 after seeing like cast photos of Evan?
Yes,
Still?
yes. I'm not saying I think cast photo, like, wait, when you say like that first opening picture of, or like when you say cast photos, you're saying like
I'm saying like would you have put
they edit that shit like
I'm saying if you knew Evan was going to be this just looking at him this big, would you have had him in your top 3 still? Okay.
no. It was very like CT dad bod-esque. I stayed away from that.
I mean, Johnny and Tyler, that's a good team.
It's a good team, but it's not better than Evan in that era. Evan was a
But
beast.
it's still like Nehemiah.
Niedermeyer.
I don't know. I think Johnny and Tyler's a fun one.
I do too. I think it's a good team. So
All right, so what anything else on Rivals? What do we got?
I mean, just overall, like Rivals is just such a fun season. And I just wish we need to go back to these kind of styles. Like this is the format I like. I love the Battle of the X's. I love what they're doing. And I haven't watched an episode yet. Hand up, have not watched an episode. But All Stars going like Rivals 5 or whatever, Rivals 4, whatever it's called. I love that shit. That is great. That's what we need more of. So I'll be sure I'll watch it eventually. I don't know when. Been busy with a few things, starting a new pod, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think this will. I mean, the challenge isn't gonna reach these heights again, so I feel pretty confident in saying that this will always be like my favorite season, maybe second favorite. Um, I love Rivals. I love it's easy to rewatch because you can just go back 10 hours and just kind of knock it all out. The cast is amazing. I feel like this has just been us saying how good everything is, but it's spanned or it spun off like sequels and just like a really fun era of the challenge, and it's just like really fun to go back and revisit and look at everybody who was on it. One of my favorite things about this cast is that it has a mix of big names who we would never see after this point, like Kenny, Evan, Evelyn, Jen, Adam, like a lot of like challenge veterans who this was their last season, combined with people who were veterans at this time and then like kept going, like Bananas, Wes, Sarah, CT, and then the rookies, right? Leroy, Jasmine, Janae, and just like everybody kind of like had their, and then like younger people like Cara and Laurel,
Mhm.
Camilla and Teresa, like they were barely on the season, but like they ended up having good challenge careers. Like it's just a mixture of a lot of people at interesting and good points of their challenge careers, and I just wish we could get back to these days at some point. The season's so fucking good.
I know. I know.
It's
Bring us
so good.
back. Anything else?
Um, what would be your pick for next season to do a deep dive on?
So we've done Rivals 3. We've done Rivals 1 now. We've done Free
And
Agents.
I think we've done X's 2,
X's 2.
I believe.
I would love to do a 3-man pod. Me, you, and Andy's friend Adam Meadows on Fresh Meat 2.
That because that's kind of his season, right?
Yeah, he's a Fresh Meat 2 expert, and I know that's his favorite season. So me, you, and Andy's friend Adam, I think those 3 would
Yeah.
be an incredible podcast for Fresh
You know
Meat
what we would
2.
have to do if we did a Fresh Meat 2 pod is we'd have to carve out like 10 minutes to do we talked on this pod about like, what our preseason rankings would have been. I think we have to just do a draft like they did on Fresh Meat 2 where they drafted all of the meat and say like looking back, what would be the redraft, right? What would be the redraft of Fresh Meat 2?
I love watching that draft episode, like the special before. That's one of my favorites.
Isn't it called Meat to Meat?
Yes, it's awesome.
That's so good.
I mean, it's not like us to ever talk about old titles of episodes. Wasn't there one like Joanna Goes Home?
Farewell, Nehemiah.
Yeah, I wonder who went home.
Oh, see, I think if we did a season deep dive on one of those seasons, like going even wayer back, doing like Fresh Meat 1 or the Duel, I think that could be pretty fun.
Interessante.
We'll see.
Ooh. We'll get into that. But with that being said, I guess thank you guys for listening to a brand new Stir the Pod podcast show. I've been your host, Trevor. You can follow us on Twitter at Stir the Pod. You can follow us on Instagram at Stir_the_pod. Thank you guys. Love you guys. Shout out Duffy.
Love you guys.